Everyone, it's Marina from Jungle and welcome back. And you can see Florence in the background. She's decided to join this today. Anyway, welcome to this series where we put on a little show and tell. It's the same three-part format that we've used all the way through this. And the format is I share with you a little bit of a story, I spill the tea, a bit of a traffic accident story to get you interested on something that's happened in the workplace. The idea is that it might validate you. You might go, oh, yeah, that's happened to me too. I didn't know that's going on out there. Then I followed up with a really brief analysis through the lens of a management consultant, and then hopefully and helpfully try to give you some tips on how you might be able to manage it in the future. We're not psychologists here, and this is a pure-hearted attempt just to, I don't know, help you out a bit if it's happening to you. Today's topic is one I have grappled with for about 20 years, and it is this topic called hostile kidding. You know that sort of kidding in the workplace where someone says something and sort of wrapped up in the falsehood of being funny, but it's typically at your expense or it's got some underlying strategy to try to make you smaller or less impactful or less credible or whatever it is. There's something else going underneath it. And I got to tell you, if it happens to you, you can tell the difference between well meaning, fun kidding around with someone and this hostile kidding because of the way it leaves you feeling. That's basically it. It's just the way you feel at the end of it. And I'm not talking about the over the top, when you're having a bad day and you just feel like biting everybody. I'm talking about when this is a persistent and a consistent pattern where you're often left with this feeling of, what is that person doing? Like, I don't know what's going on with them. And you feel almost compelled to go, mate, are you all right? Like, is there something going on? Now, I'm going to share a really personal version because I get this repetitively and I'll just get to explain the context. So, I'm an auditor and I do restructures and all sorts of things in that area. So, as a symptom of my role and my function, I will often make people feel uncomfortable. Not deliberately, in fact, I go to great lengths to make people not feel uncomfortable, but you know what it's like. Someone comes in, a consultant comes in, and they require transparency, and it's uncomfortable. Like I'd hate it if someone did it to me. But what some people do, who perhaps aren't able to express that level of discomfort or regulate their emotions through that level of discomfort, it starts to spill out as this passive aggressive, highly personal barbs. And I'll share with you because I just get it. I get it like all the time. It's almost funny. And it typically is a tell for me of how out of kilter the person is who's doing it. There's something about it. Typically it's a power issue or they could be, the good old office narcissist. They just could be a bit of an idiot. I don't know, whatever it is. But it's one of these tells that pop out over and atop and they start this hostile kidding. Now, the one I get is I get diminished by being told one of two things. I either get that patronizing, oh, you're so smart. Look at you with your glasses. Oh, you're like, you know, look at you with all your degrees. And it's like crazy. So, what they're saying and the behavior that sort of wraps around it is incredibly incongruent. And I remember when it first happened to me, I had a client, this is wild, this story. I had a client about 15 years ago, and she used to be a headmistress. She still had the energy of a headmistress too. And I'm probably deep within my trauma of school. I probably still have the energy of a naughty kid. I was only naughty because wasn't challenged enough. So I used to just, I don't know, nothing bad, didn't set fire or anything, but I don't know, it's a bit mischievous, talk too much. Probably like lots of you. Anyways, go bring that from that time back to this meeting with this client, and we'll call her Caroline. All right, good solid name. So I'm sitting in front of her, and we're doing their digital strategy, and she leans back and she says to me, "Do you know if you were an adult? No, if you were a child now, they probably would have medicated you." It's like, the freak. That's crazy thing to say. But she didn't stop. She actually went on. She said, I think it's pretty, you probably would have been diagnosed with ADHD or something like that. And you probably would have been medicated. And I was like, and then she laughed. It is a crazy thing to say to someone. And the reason, like, here's the analysis of it, right? Here's a couple of things around the analysis. So, one, she, I don't know, my IQ intimidated her. She wanted to gain power. She needed to sort of diminish me or something. But there was this really strategic energy around it where she knew exactly what she was doing. But what she was basically tapping into was any insecurity I had around not fitting in or, you know, trauma from being the nerd at school or what have you. Now, unfortunately for her, I wasn't a nerd. I was like one of those kids that just ran across all the different areas and what have you, being tall and a bit sporty and all that stuff. And I didn't have any problems on that front. But this woman, grown ass woman, is playing it and she used to do it all the time. And I was like, is your problem? And also, sorry, I've got a little bit of frog in my throat. I don't know if you can see, it's pretty dark and overcast here, so it's cold season coming to Melbourne. Okay, the other two examples that were very similar, and they just happen to be females. I don't think it's a feminine attribute. I'm sure dudes do it. I have had actually dudes do it as well. But the other one was where a colleague of mine used to tilt her head and say to my other colleagues, oh, you know what Marina's like. It was so disempowering. It's crazy. To the point where one of the colleague who used to receive that feedback of, you know what Marina's like. She's lovely, but you know what she's like. He actually raised it with me and said, hey, did you know this person says this behind your back? And I was actually a bit crushed because I trusted this person implicitly. And I was like, what the hell? Are you trying to elevate yourself in professionally in the eyes by stepping on the heads of others? Like, there's absolutely no reason to do that. Just, I don't know, disrespectful. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what was going on with it? And the last one I was doing a rather large strategic plan for someone, and it became apparent over time this CEO was, I don't know, she was a little bit crazy. Lovely, a little bit crazy. But she was trying to cut corners. She wanted some free rein, yet the board had engaged me to do quite a detailed banking plan. So it was a little bit, we were not at odds, but I had to be very careful to not aggravate her, shall we say, or her impatience of creating a system of total freedom where she could just do what she liked. So I was sort of like in that tension spot. What she used to do is like, what was it like growing up being so smart and nerdy? Same thing. It was like, there must be like some energy out there, like try to tap her and get her feeling uncomfortable about being a nerd. I wasn't a nerd. And even if I was a nerd, I'd be super proud of it. I'm intellectual and what have you, but come on, you gotta do something more creative or funny at least. And there's been other ones over time. I'm 5'10", so I've had people comment on, like these really personal things. They're all designed just to take you down a peg, as they say. But it's always the moment before that happens that I find the most revealing. And I think in everyone I could think of, as I was thinking about this little podcasty thing, was that the person felt really threatened for some reason. Some of it was their own shit going on internally. Some of it, was their circumstance. There were probably other ones where, particularly if I'm doing serious audit, I think I can sometimes be a bit insensitive, like I forget around the other person. Doesn't matter. Hostile kidding sucks, right? Dudes, regulate your emotions, take a glass of water. I don't know, whatever. Don't be doing that to someone. There is absolutely no reason or permission to be able to, I don't know, do that. So what do you do if it happens to you? One, recognise it. That's why we make this whole series, just to validate it. It's not you. They're trying to get in your head for whatever reason. They might be a sociopath, or they might just be like trying to grasp for some power because they're feeling uncomfortable. A bit like, when someone's drowning, they grasp for anything to try to stabilize themselves. Some people do that. So don't take it personally is a big part of it. but recognize it's happening and then use your intellect and your capacity to go, this is the truth of what's happening. Now, in the case of that colleague of mine who was chatting behind my back to, she probably thought she was doing nothing wrong, maybe. I don't know, she's got a pretty healthy ego about it. But it affected our relationship. I suddenly, using my own advice here, I had to look at things with more clarity and maybe just sort of dial back the openness or the relationship that I was giving out. I sort of had to readjust a few things in my head and went, okay, I still love her, I still look out, that maybe I just had to be a little bit more sophisticated on that front. The other thing is if it becomes to the point where it's interfering with your credibility, or it's particularly the freelancer and what have you, I think you need to call it out. I actually do. This one here, I don't think stoicism or, writing it out works. Particularly, I hate to say it, as a female, there's so much disruption in the business environment at the moment around men and women and different generations, all this sort of unnecessary angst. But I think you need to call it out. I think you actually need to pull someone aside, old school, and say, dude, not okay. And put this overused phrase of boundaries. But I think it's completely okay to say, look, that slide tackle, I call it a slide tackle because that feels for me, but that moment when you made fun of me is not appropriate in a business environment. So going forward, let's never do that again. Are you happy to work like that? That's pretty much how I tackle it. I'm quite direct because I think in this day and age of distraction, any ambiguity, people just go back to old behaviours. So I do tackle it. Now, the last little tip, I will let you know how I reflect back on that CEO where I was stuck between, with a lot of tension between her and a jumpy board, is I ended up embracing the character she was trying to reduce me to. And rather than try to, put in a boundary which would have been activated her inner child. And I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but we seem to have to be a psychologist in the workforce now. Anyways, back to that one. So what I did, I would ignore it, bypass it, and then eventually I started calling myself Alfred to her Batman. I went with it. I was like, yeah, you're Batman and I'm Alfred. It made her laugh, which was nice. She's a lovely, warm person and she was quite under the pump, quite uncomfortable. But I think the better thing with that is that it validated some things, but for me, it took the power away. It took the negative power away and put it right back in my hands again. So I would joke, say Alfred's here. Go forth, Batman. So Batman is not Batman without an Alfred. So that's it. That's it. Hostile kidding. Don't do it to others, and look after yourself if it's happening to you as well. It's not a pleasant experience. So with that, I'm going to sign off on this beautiful day, raining in Melbourne, and hope to see you at a session soon. Oh, also, before I forget, we've got a bunch of free events. If you haven't already, look down the description. We're running one a month just to target. They're advanced topics. So don't come along and expect to get babied. We don't do that stuff. But if you want to come along, learn some pretty advanced skills, straight talking, just like we do everywhere else, then invest in yourself and come on. Okay. Have a great day out there, folks.